So, good morning all of you. So today I will be discussing about blotting techniques. So firstly I will start with the introduction part. So blots are techniques that are used for transferring DNA, RNA and proteins onto a carrier, and carrier can be a solid spot or a metric system, right? So they can be separated, and they can be separated with the help of gel electrophoresis. So in gel electrophoresis we will particularly use agarose gel for the separation purposes. So basically the blotting techniques involve southern blotting, then northern blotting, then western blotting, and the ELISA technique. So southern blot is basically used for the transferring the DNA. Northern blotting is for transferring the RNA, and the western blotting is for the protein transfer and its estimation. So there are three types of blotting techniques. First is southern blot, as discussed earlier. It is used to detect DNA and its transformation. Then ELISA is used to detect and analyze the concentration of antibodies. And finally the western blot, it is used to detect the concentration of protein. Right. So I will be start with the southern blotting. So southern blotting firstly developed by Sir Edwin Southern in 1975. He is a professor of biochemistry, right? So for this method, Dr. Southern won the Lasker Award for clinical medical research for finding specific DNA sequence, and this procedure is developed at Edinburgh University. Okay. So finally this technique is known as DNA transfer and southern blotting after his name. So the mechanism of southern blotting involves separation, transfer, and finally the hybridization. So basically southern blotting is a method that is routinely used in molecular biology for the detection of specific DNA sequence in DNA samples. And the detected DNA can be a single gene, or it can be a part of larger piece of DNA, for example viral genome, right? So southern blot combines, as discussed earlier, we will use agarose gel for transferring of DNA. So in southern blotting it involves a combination of agarose gel electrophoresis for size separation of DNA. With this method, to transfer the size separated DNA to a filter paper, and the filter paper is a solid spot or metric system for further probe hybridization, and the hybridization is a key to this method. So hybridization is a process of forming a double stranded DNA, right? Double stranded DNA molecule between a single stranded DNA probe and a single stranded targeted DNA molecule. So the basic principle involves firstly the mixture of molecule is separated based on the separation technique, that is agarose gel. The molecules are immobilized on the metric system, and we also knows that the metric system in this technique is filter paper, and the probe is added to the matrix to the molecule. So and the next step is any unbound probe are then removed with the help of washing, and the place where the probe is connected correspond to the location of immobilized target molecules. So if we look for apparatus, so it consists of a plastic tray that consists of agarose gel and some PCR samples that will be moved based on the passage of electric current. Then Whatman filter paper, 3 mm size, then nitrocellulose membrane, and finally the setup of southern blotting consists of in the bottom we have plastic trays that consist of first layer of gel, that is agarose gel, then nitrocellulose membrane followed by 3 sheets of filter paper, that is Whatman filter paper, then glass plate, paper tissues, then glass plates, and a weight of less than 0.75 kg. So this is the setup of southern blotting technique, right? So we will next move to the steps that are involved in the southern blotting. So firstly, you can see in the diagram we have a double-stranded DNA molecule. So in the first step, there is a digestion of DNA, double-stranded DNA molecule with the help of restriction enzyme, right? So the role of restriction enzyme is digestion. Means the double-stranded DNA molecule is get digested into some fragments. So in next step, the complex mixture of fragments is then subjected to gel electrophoresis to separate the fragments according to their size. You can also see the diagram. There is migration of molecules based on the size. The higher at the top, then smaller, and finally smaller. In the third step, the restricted fragments present in the gel are denatured with the help of alkali and transferred onto a nitrocellulose filter or nylon membrane with the help of blotting techniques, right? So the DNA fragments, the double-stranded DNA fragments is then denatured to get the single-stranded DNA molecules. This procedure preserves the distribution of fragments in the gel and thus create a replica of the gel on the filter paper. So in the next step, the filter is incubated under hybridization condition. Some specific conditions are there. For example, some specific temperature, some specific humidity conditions, some specific lab scale conditions. So the filter paper is incubated under hybridization conditions with a specific radio-labeled DNA probe. So in this we will use radio-labeled DNA probe. The probe hybridized to the complementary DNA restriction fragments, and finally the probe that we have used hybridized to the complementary DNA restriction fragments. And at the end, the excess probe is then washed away and the probe bound to the filter is detected by autoradiography, which reveals the DNA fragment to the probe hybridized. So in the last step, some specific probe that is in the excess form is washed away and the probe bound to the filter is detected by autoradiography, right? So so this is the technique. So I will move to the application part of southern blotting. So southern blots are used in gene discovery, then mapping, evolution and development studies, as well as diagnostic and forensic sciences. For example, in the identification of criminal cases, we use southern blot or DNA fingerprinting, right? And identification of transferred gene in transgenic individual, etc., is also done with the help of southern blotting. Some other applications of southern blots are southern blot allows investigators to determine the molecular weight of the restriction fragments and to measure relative amount of different samples present in that mixture, right? So southern blot is also used to detect the presence of particular bit of DNA in a sample. And last application of southern blot is it also helps in analyzing the genetic pattern which is appeared in a person's DNA. So these are the applications of southern blotting. So in next slide I will be discussing about next technique, that is Western blotting. So Western blotting is an immunoblotting technique which rely on the specificity of binding between a protein of interest and a probe, and to allow detection of the protein of interest in a mixture of many other similar molecules. So I already discussed about the Western blotting, that Western blotting is used to determine or used to detect the concentration of specific protein of interest. So in this technique, we basically use SDS page. SDS is sodium dodecyl sulfate and page is polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis. So you can differentiate between southern blotting and western blotting on the basis of material used. You can remind in southern blotting we have used agarose gel, and in western blotting we are using SDS page, that is sodium dodecyl sulfate polyacrylamide gel, right? So I will be next. I will be covering with the steps involved in the Western blotting. So, as seen in diagram, in the first step, a mixture of protein sample. In a mixture of proteins sample is subjected to electrophoresis on a SDS polyacrylamide gel. So, electroblotting transfer the separated protein. So, during the electrophoresis process, there is separation of a mixture of protein based on the size, and after that, electroblotting transfer the separated proteins from the gel to the surface of nitrocellulose membrane, and this can be done with the help of passage of electric current, as seen in the diagram, right? So in the next step, the blot is incubated with a generic protein, for example, milk protein or bovine serum albumin, which binds to any remaining sticky places on the nitrocellulose membrane. In the next step, what we will use is, we will use a generic protein, for example, silk protein or BSA, which binds to any remaining sticky places, right? So in the next step, an antibody that is specific for the protein of interest, which is known as primary antibody and can be designated as A1V, AB1, is added to the nitrocellulose sheet and reacts with the antigen. Only the band containing the protein of interest binds the antibody and forming a layer of antibody molecule, as can be seen in the diagram, right? So in the final step, after washing, for the removal of non-specifically bound primary antibody, a secondary antibody which is specifically recognize the receptor domain of the primary antibody. So what is the role of secondary antibody is, secondary antibody specifically recognize the binding sites present on the primary antibodies, right? So AB2 is radioactively labeled, or it is covalently linked to a receptor enzyme, as you can see here. The secondary antibody is attached with the receptor enzyme, which allows to visualize the protein primary antibody and secondary antibody 2 complex. So the major function of secondary antibody is that it helps to visualize the protein, primary antibody and secondary antibody complex, right? So this one is the final step of the Western blotting technique. So I will further move towards the application. So Western blotting is used for the confirmation of HIV test. Then Western blot is also used as a definitive test for the bovine spongiform encephalopathy. Then some form of Lyme disease. And the bacteria involved in Lyme disease is Borrelia bacterium, and this can be tested only with the help of Western blotting. So these are some of the application of Western blotting technique. And the last technique of the Southern blotting is ELISA. So ELISA, what ELISA is? ELISA is enzyme linked immunosorbent assay. So it is a common laboratory technique which is used to measure the concentration of analyte. So analyte is basically antibody or antigen in a particular solution. So in ELISA, what we will do is we will analyze the concentration of antibody or any antigen in a particular solution. So basically in ELISA, the main component of ELISA is micro titer plate. As you can see in the diagram, there is micro titer plate and it is composed of plastic material. So it is also known as 96 well plates, micro titer plate or 96 well plates, right? So why it is known as enzyme linked immunosorbent assay? Why ELISA is known as enzyme linked immunosorbent assay? So as you can see, antigen or antibody of interest is firstly adsorbed on a plastic surface. So it is known as sorbent, right? So in first step, antigen or antibody is which is of interest is adsorbed on the plastic surface, and plastic surface in this method is 96 well plate or micro titer plate. Okay. So in the next step, antigen is recognized by specific antibody and is known as immuno, and this antibody is recognized this antibody is recognized by second antibody which has enzyme attached and is known as enzyme linked, right? And finally the substrate react with the enzyme to produce product usually colored and also known as chromosomes. So this is why it is known as enzyme linked immunosorbent assay. So before starting with the procedure part, I will be discussing about some of the basic techniques that we'll be going to use in our procedure. So first there is solid phase, as discussed earlier. Solid phase is usually a micro titer plate and having 8 into 12 well format. As you can see in the diagram, there is 8 and 12 well format, right? So it is a solid phase. Then second is adsorption. The adsorption is the process of adding any antigen or antibody diluted in a buffer solution, so it attaches to the solid phase on incubation. So it is known as adsorption. The next basic term is washing. The simple flooding or emptying of wells with a buffer solution to separate bound from unbound reagent in ELISA is known as washing, right? And the next is, everybody knows what are antigens. So any molecule that starts the production of antibodies are known as antigens, right? And antibodies are protein produced in response to an allergic reaction or in response to a particular antigen, right? And next is enzyme conjugate. So an enzyme that is attached irreversibly to any antibody is known as enzyme conjugate. And in ELISA, basically which enzyme is used is horseradish peroxidase. So this enzyme is used as a enzyme conjugate, right? Next term is chromosome. I have already discussed about it. Chromosome. Chromosome are a chemical that alters colors as a result of an enzyme interaction with that of substrate. Means there is a formation of enzyme substrate complex, and basic chromosome used in ELISA is TMB, that is trimethylbenzylene, right? Next basic term is stopping. So stopping is the process of stopping the action of any enzyme on the substrate, and the process is known as stopping. And final term is reading. So reading is basically spectrophotometric measurement of color developed in the 96 well plate or in ELISA is known as a reading. So these are some of the basic terms that will be used in coming procedure. So next I will move towards principle of ELISA, right? So ELISA is basically based on the lock and key hypothesis. So here antigen is act as a key and antibody will be act as a lock. So key fits into the lock, means antigen fits into the antibody. And finally the enzyme conjugate substrate, means enzyme conjugate substrate bound to a secondary antibody that binds with the antigen antibody complex, right? So this one is the basic principle of ELISA, that starts with the formation of lock and key hypothesis, then formation of enzyme substrate complex, and finally formation of enzyme conjugates complex with that of primary antibody. So next, what are the equipments that will be used in the ELISA? So I have already discussed it, that is a micro titer plate or a micro well plate or 96 well plates, right? So these consist of flat bottoms and made up of polystyrene and contain 8 into 12 well format, and the capacity of each well is 350 microliter, right? So second equipment that is used in ELISA is multi-pipette or micro-pipette, you can say. So multi-pipette is a multiple channeled micro-pipette and is a good help for even small scale work. Then third device used in the ELISA is washing devices. So it is a manually operating washing devices and maybe of use particularly when there is a risk of risk that the samples tested in ELISA contain infectious material, so must be collected for subsequent disinfection. And finally, there is microplate washer. So these are very efficient with unusually low carryover contamination. So basically, it is used for the washing of microplate. So next, I will move towards basic chemical requirements that will be used in during the process of ELISA. I have already discussed about it. So first reagent is coating buffer. So the composition of coating buffer is, you can see in the table, coating buffer consists of 0.01 molar phosphate buffer plus 0.15 molar of sodium chloride, right? Then second reagent is diluting or washing buffer that will be used during the washing purposes only, and washing buffer consists of 0.01 molar phosphate buffer plus 0.50 molar sodium chloride plus 0.1% 2-in-20. Everybody knows 2-in-20 is hydrophilic surfactant. So this composition is known as washing buffer, right? The next reagent is blocking buffer, and blocking buffer is bovine serum albumin, BSA. Then enzyme I have already discussed it, horseradish peroxidase, and is also known as HRPO. And next reagent is chromogenic substrate, and chromogenic substrate used during the process of ELISA is trimethylbenzylene, that is TMB, and finally the stop solution, and the stop solution consists of 0.5 molar sulfuric acid, right? So these are the chemicals that is used in the ELISA process. So I will be now I will be discussing about the procedure, how we will perform ELISA in the lab scale. So in the first step, you can also see in the diagram, it is a well of one well of 96 well plate. So in the first step, antigen or sample is added to the plate, right? In the first step, antigen is added to the well or plate. Blocking buffer is added to block the remaining protein binding sites. In the next step, the blocking buffer, I have already discussed, blocking buffer is bovine serum albumin. So in the next step, we will add bovine serum albumin as a blocking buffer to block the remaining protein binding sites, right? So in the next step, a suitable primary antibody is added. In the third step, there is addition of primary antibody, and in the fourth step, you can see there is a formation already formed a complex between the secondary antibody and the enzyme substrate. So in the fourth step, a substrate, that is secondary antibody and HRPO conjugate, is then added, which recognize and binds to the primary antibody. So I have already discussed about the role of secondary antibody is to recognize the binding sites and binds with it, right? And finally, the TMB substrate is added and is converted by HRPO to a detectable form, and the detectable form is colored solution, right? HRPO जो है is a colored solution. So this one is the basic procedure of performing ELISA test in lab scale, and in the next slide I will be discussing about the advantages of ELISA, then disadvantages of ELISA, and the limitations of ELISA. So advantages of ELISA: reagents are relatively cheap and have long shelf life, and it is highly specific and sensitive. There is no radiation hazard occur during labeling or disposal of waste. Then easy to perform, and it is a quick procedure, right? And equipment is widely available, easily available, and it can be used to a variety of infections, right? And it can be used on most type of biological samples, for example plasma, serum, urine, or as well as cell extracts. So ELISA can be used on biological samples, for example plasma, serum, urine, and as well as cell extracts, right? So these are the advantages of ELISA. Next I will be discussing about disadvantages of ELISA. So measurement of enzyme activity can be more complex than the measurement of activity of some type of isotopes. So the first disadvantage of ELISA is that the measurement of enzyme activity can be more complex than the measurement of activity of some type of radioisotopes. Then enzyme activity may be affected by plasma constituents. So as we know that we are using some biological samples, so the enzyme activity can be affected by some plasma constituents, and kits used in ELISA are not cheap, very specific to a particular antigen but won't recognize other antigens. So ELISA is basically limited to a particular antigen, right? So false positive or false negative results may be possible, specifically with mutated or altered antigens. So there is possibility of some false positive or false negative results, especially with the mutated or altered antigen. Everybody knows mutated means some changes in the genetic material, right? So next is limitations of ELISA. So limitations include result may not be absolute, right? Antibody must be available, poor producer or interference, and the concentration may be unclear, right? And as discussed in the disadvantages, there are possibility of some false possible results, right? And false negative results. So these are the limitations of performing ELISA, right? So these are the references from where I collect the material, right? And thank you.